Welcome to the Creating High Performance Athletes podcast. I'm your host, Olympian Jonathan Edwards. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Hey, it's Jonathan, and welcome to another weekly Facebook Live here at the Raising High Performing Athletes podcast. For those of you listening on iTunes, for those of you catching me on live on Facebook, welcome. Post me a little question, post me a little note. Love to hear that you're here. So today, a lot of good stuff kind of going on. Hey there, Dave Nord. Hey there, Helen. Hi again. Wayne Jones, hello, sir. Mike Tupin, good to see you. Mike Tupin, I just got your note. Really appreciate that. So great stuff. So for those of you listening to me on iTunes, I'm shouting out people who are kind of coming on live, and I know that can be somewhat kind of awkward, but really appreciate everybody being on. This week, we got some good topics that this came up with one of my athletes who's in part of my Athlete Breakthrough Blueprint program. I gotta change the name, Athlete Breakthrough Blueprint, right? So, one of the challenges that every athlete faces is working with coaches, right? And wondering to work with a coach, there's a lot of trust. Innately, like we build that into the system of sports, and so I want to talk about this today because not everybody is in the best situation, right? That being said, a lot of people make bad. What's the word? I want to say, like, in the world of sports right now, everybody's on edge, right? Coaches are on edge, parents are on edge, and then the athletes are kind of caught in the middle, and then they're on edge, right? And so that's not really, I don't think that's fair. So I wanted to I wrote out some notes here. I'm kind of going a little bit freestyle on this topic in particular, because there's a lot of places this can go. So first and foremost, I just want everybody to know that I don't believe that success of an athlete is 100% on the coach that they're working with, right? A lot of times, and I don't like to blame coaches for the bad performance of an athlete, okay? Because I feel that it's on the athlete and the parents of the athlete, because a lot of times the athletes are young, right? Like I've worked with athletes as young as 10 years old, and they're not adults. Like, they're not making adult decisions, right? That's what the adults are there for. And so I'm not one to just blame coaches. I think partly because I put too much pressure on myself as a coach. I want all my athletes to get to the next level, and I'll be honest, like, I struggle working with athletes who just they don't want to get better. Right? I'm not good for those kids, right? And so I just wanted to put that out as a little bit of a disclaimer. The thing that kind of came up this week, and you may have seen this in the news, was the girl from the Nike, the running athlete. Did anybody see that? Amy Cain, I think was her name. Mary Cain. And if you guys are on Facebook Live and you saw this, just give me a little thumbs up or a note, or just say that you saw it. So this is a pretty kind of tragic example of what I want to talk about today, right? But Mary Cain was a prodigious runner at the age of 13. Like, she was ridiculously fast. She's white. She's from New York, from Bronxville. Not where you would think I mean, I don't know if Bronxville, New York, was being a hotbed of running, but she was in 2014. She was junior world champion in the 3,000 meters. So that's 5 miles, right? Sorry, that's 3K. Anyway, I can't remember. So Mary Cain went on the New York Times and basically said that Nike ruined her, that Alberto Salazar ruined her, and tragically about this situation, when you look at it now from at this point in time, yeah, it looks really bad. But this is where a young athlete who puts all of their, kind of their eggs in the basket of their coach can be, whether rightly or wrongly or correctly or incorrectly, I want to use my words here properly, but taken advantage of. But I want to just lay out a couple sides to this story. One, in the coach's defense, and this is where in every family I work with, when there's a problem with the coach, rarely is the side of the coach really fully understood. In the case of Mary Cain and Alberto Salazar and Nike, right? You've got to realize that this is of all the places where we're trying to go as fast as possible, Nike is going to be one of those places, right? I think everybody would agree, right? I mean, this is the top of the food chain. Does that make this right or wrong? No, it doesn't. But you just got to see the inertia that's happening here, right? In timed events, okay? In timed events, the clock doesn't care how you got there, okay? I always tell people, like, when they ask me, they're like, tell me about you. Like, I'm like, well, okay, here. I'm an only child. I was an Olympian in a timed event, right? And I was a goalie in every sport I played. My attitude is one of just tell me what I need to do to get to the bottom of the hill faster, right? I'll do it. I don't need to question that. I'll do it. And this is true for all timed events. As a goalie, any mistake I made ended up on the scoreboard. I don't want that. So just tell me what I got to do and I'll do it. So as an athlete, you're looking in those types of events, you're just looking for the thing to go as fast as possible. Okay. Now, what can happen in these situations is that depending on the cachet of the coach, the experience, the level, and Alberto Salazar in this case is like one of the greatest runners in history. Okay. So if you don't know who he was as an athlete, just go back and look at that. Now, you've got Nike, and you've got him there as the head coach. His job is to make the fastest athletes in the world and to take the inventory of athletes that he has and make them the fastest in the world. A problem that arises, okay, is there's the collision of values versus performance. Okay, so I want everybody to understand this because this is hard. This is hard for people. Like, I've worked with families who their athlete is world class, prodigious, right? And then all of a sudden they get college interest, right? And so up until a certain point, families are like, yes, my daughter, my son, like, they're amazing. They're going to be, this is their dream. And then what happens is they get to a point where it's like, well, wait a second, this was their dream until this value butts up against it, right? And that can be anything. It could be they don't want to leave home. They don't want to go to a big school or a small school, or they don't want to invest any more money. Or they're vegan and they're told now they got to eat meat, like whatever, like, there's a point. And so this is where when people look at doping in sports, for example, some people they have no idea how an athlete could even do that, but that's a value thing. Okay. Now I'm getting a little off topic here. I didn't want to go as far down this road, but what happens is that when coaches come into play and they're perceived as being controlling, what that's really running up against is the values of the athlete, right? But that doesn't make it right or wrong. Just bear with me here. What ends up happening is that a coach can be perceived as controlling based on the information that they're giving the athlete and how they're giving it, right? So I've worked with families where they're looking for like a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, because they don't trust the information that they're getting, and based on their values, right? And so, but the coach is basically saying like, okay, this is what needs to happen as he or she sees it to be. Okay. Now, sometimes athletes, and I fall into this category, athletes will hire me as an unbiased third party. To kind of help them think through the process. So, for example, I've an athlete right now where the coach is like, I want you to only ever talk to me and only do what I say when I say it and how I say it. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I first and foremost though, I understand why that coach is doing that. Okay. One, a coach can act controlling because they want to control the athlete's environment. They want to control the inputs. They want to control the information going in because that coach feels that their methodology is the best. Okay. And I think as a whole, like societally, we don't like that anymore. We're really worried about that stuff. Why? Because there's been a string of coaches now in various sports who've acted like that, and bad stuff's happened, right? Athletes are getting abused, mentally, emotionally, physically, but this is where I think now it has raised an awareness amongst all of our families and our athletes to be aware of this, because the coach who is controlling, some may consider like it's a lack of self-esteem on the coach's part, right? But you can't just fault the coach for that, right? So in the case of Nike and Mary Cain, Alberto Salazar is running a program, and their job is to go as fast as possible. And now people say like, oh yeah, but he got banned for doping for 4 years. And I get it, but you don't think that there's athletes elsewhere in the world that are doing that? And that's in North America, we think like, oh yeah, we have USADA and we have drug testing, we have all this stuff, and we're catching cheats over here just like they're catching cheats anywhere else. That's not true. Okay, that's not true. There are countries where like the gist of this is that so people know is that funding is tied to a country and how they go through the WADA, World Anti-Doping Association, right? But there's countries like Bulgaria and Kazakhstan and Russia, right, who don't follow the rules like we do, right? So it's great that we do that. Don't get me wrong, but I just want people to understand that it's different. So in a timed event, the job is like we're just trying to get our athletes to that finish line as fast as we can. The problem with that is that now as athletes, we come up to a certain point. Now, in Mary Cain's case, for those of you that saw this, it came across like, what, Alberto Salazar is such an ass. He told her to lose weight. He kept telling her to lose weight. Well, here's the thing. In a sport where weight and speed are directly related, of course a coach is going to say, listen, you need to lose some pounds. What happened here, though, was there was no level of intervention that could help Mary say like, okay, listen, physically, we got to watch this, right? That wasn't in place. That's what made that so bad, right? So the controlling coach who controls everything doesn't want anything that is contradictory to their approach. The good thing there is that there is a protection in place. The bad thing there, and I want to just be honest. The bad thing there is that value, right, goes against the quest for performance. So if you hear me say that, and all of a sudden you go, well, okay, of course, right, yeah, like you don't want to sacrifice your health for performance. Okay, but just be aware that's your value. And in timed events, it doesn't really care about the value. So let me just lighten this up a little bit before you think I'm crazy. Saturday Night Live back in the 80s had a skit with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. No, it wasn't John Belushi. Yeah, it was John Belushi. But it was Sergei Akhmudov of the Soviet Union. It was the all-drug Olympics. So, and it was this really funny skit where they're like, Sergei Akhmudov of the Soviet Union is about to try to lift like 2,000 pounds, and he gets up there, and Kevin Nealon is the announcer, I think, and all of a sudden Sergei Akhmudov goes to lift the weights, and he pulls his arms off, right, and before that, he's like, Sergey has taken all these drugs so he doesn't feel any pain. He can't feel the weight he's lifting. It's the all drug Olympics, right? So he's just trying to lift as much as possible. And so the funny thing is that, he pulls his arm off, and Kevin Nealon goes, oh, that's horrible. He's not going to feel that till morning, that sort of thing, when all the drugs wear off, right? But I say that jokingly, but what happens here is that coaches are wired to help their athlete perform and their teams to perform at the best of their ability and to push them. I sometimes laugh because, when accusations come out as a coach, usually after the fact that, oh, he was verbally abusive, I think every coach is verbally abusive, right? Like if you define abuse as that being something that you don't particularly agree with, but it pushes you, that's what coaching is. Now, again, don't get me wrong, it can be taken too far, right? I'm dealing with an athlete right now whose coach is quite controlling and is saying that, pretty negative stuff, right? And I don't think this coach is going to be around for a while, right? It's that bad. But I would be doing a disservice as a parent or as a coach or as a guide to allow my athlete to go into that situation and not be ready for that, right? And not be prepared for that. So one of the things that I encourage all my families to do is you have to empower your athlete. You have to help them understand that the coach they're going into play with, that coach has their own issues, their own abilities, right? They may be phenomenal technically, but they don't know how to voice it. The problems we usually end up having with coaches or people for that matter is not always what they say, but how they say it. So when Alberto Salazar goes to Mary Cain and says, listen, you need to lose some weight. Okay. Now everybody piles on Alberto, and I'm not defending him, don't get me wrong, but like there was another quote that came up, like there was a woman, Goucher, who she had given birth. And this is one of the best runners in the United States. And she had given birth and she had come back. And after giving birth, like I can't remember how many months it was, but she's got baby fat on her, right? So which is to be expected. She comes back and she runs like the fastest time that year for women in the in the U.S. And what does Alberto say? Alberto doesn't come to her and say like, "Oh my God, big hugs, that's amazing, you did a great job." He goes, "Wow, when you lose that more baby weight, you're gonna be faster." So he sounds like a jerk. He sounds like an ass. But really, all he's doing, he is wired to help an athlete go as fast as they can, right? To the detriment, basically to his detriment, because he's not able to wrap it in a package that comes across in a way that it sounds appropriate and it sounds right. It totally comes out. He just sounds like a jerk, right? So when you have a controlling coach, it doesn't matter what the sport, a controlling coach, it is a level of self-esteem, for one. If they are saying things negatively to your athlete, part of it is they do not have the ability to articulate it in a way that you need to hear it. It's like they're speaking Spanish and you speak English, right? And you may understand a little bit of Spanish, but all they speak is Spanish, right? And so you're trying to get some of it, but other parts of it just is totally offensive. But realize controlling coaches, it's a level of self-esteem, okay? But that doesn't give you the permission to dismiss them and their expertise elsewhere, okay? So what I want you to do is when you have a coach like that, I call this like no drama. Like take the filter off of it, and yeah, your coach may have come at you and said some negative things to your athlete, to your son or your daughter or whatever. To remove the filter and take what it is they said that was some constructive, right? So out of every bad thing that a coach tells you, there is something constructive. Like even when a coach says, "You're the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life," back up for a second, right? Be the adult in the conversation. The coach may not be the adult, but be the adult and go, "All right, listen, what about me right now makes you say that?" Right? What about me makes you say that, Mr. Controlling Coach or Mrs. Controlling Coach? Because it's not just a male thing. I've seen it a lot on the women's side too, so you can't tell me it's one way or the other. Okay? But so then it forces them to now articulate what it is they want you to be better at. Okay? So now if you're going to, because every coach needs to act like an adult, I'll give you that, right? A coach can't act like a child. Right. So, but you got to come at the coach and meet them halfway and go, all right, listen, what about me makes you say that? Okay. And then they have to give you an answer. If they don't give you an answer, now it's time to go like, okay, maybe I do need a different coach, right? But I'm not giving you permission as the parent or the athlete to dismiss the coach because of the way they've wrapped up what it is they've told you. Okay. So I equate this like to, going to a party and there's somebody walking around with hors d'oeuvres on a plate, right? You have the choice to, right? What do? They come across and they've got like, the little cheesy things on the crackers, and they got a little salmon spread, and then they got the little fun stuff over here. They have the little dessert tray, but then they've got like liver, right? So leave the liver, take the stuff you like, right? But have a discussion, right? When parents and athletes and coaches, like, I'm not a fan of siloing. I've said this before, there's people that say like, okay, coaches should coach. And this usually comes from coaches, right? Let the coaches coach, the athletes play, and the parents parent, and they shouldn't mix. That's said by someone who is lazy, doesn't have the self-esteem to be open to dealing with criticism and finding a way to articulate better to his athletes. Okay. So I really want you to understand that it's not just the coach's fault. We also have to come at it and go, okay, listen, I need to understand this. Because unfortunately for Mary Cain in this story, just to backtrack here, and Alberto Salazar, unfortunately the way this story has been portrayed now is that it was like all Nike, it's horrible, it's all their fault. And that's not true, right? Right? There needs to be communication with the athlete and the parent and the coaches, especially with younger athletes, going like, okay, wait a second, she's lost her period. Is that like, so the question there is that good or bad? And a lot of female athletes lose their periods. It's called being amenorrheic, right? Now losing it for years, obviously not good for the body, but in a timed event, at the world-class level, there are women in Kenya who've lost their period for forever, right? And yeah, their bones are brittle and they're breaking bones, but they are willing to do that. Their values allow them to do that because they're in a timed event and they're just trying to beat world records. Well, so if you want to compete with that, but there's a point where now, okay, the value comes like, all right, wow, losing my period for 3 years is not good for my body. I can't go further. Right? I can't go further from here. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that at the elite athletic level, sometimes it's good that an athlete doesn't know that, right? If an athlete knows all the things that could possibly go wrong, they attract that and then it's done. And we don't really want that to happen because we want to see an athlete go as far as they possibly can. But what's unfortunate in this situation was that there wasn't better health checks. It's portrayed now like, okay, Nike was nothing but male athletes and these were female athletes, and they don't, and I get it. Men don't know necessarily what to do in that situation. They can't relate to that, right? So again, there needs to be this checks there. But some people go like, oh, well, those athletes will never go fast in that case. Well, if that's the case, then maybe they shouldn't have tried to go that fast, right? So I want to just have a discussion on this. I want people to understand that it's not an easy answer, but we can work with controlling coaches if we understand why they're doing what they're doing. If we can remove the filters, just get the facts, right? I believe that a controlling coach that says you can't talk to anybody other than me, they are operating at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to self-esteem, right? I know as a coach that I want my athletes to be as well-rounded as possible, getting as much information as they can, because I think that's going to empower them in the long run. It's going to keep them safe. It's going to keep me on my toes. And it also improves the discussion that then just only reinforces the strength of the athlete, right? In Mary Cain's case, the day she lost her period, or like a couple months in, and she started to realize, wow, I haven't had my period in a couple of years. I'm getting really skinny, right? This, she needed a third party, right? She needed a third party to confide in that could continue a discussion. But when can you just imagine, like, you're at Nike, we're training with the best in the world. Like, you don't want to lose that, Why? Because your mind is wired around going as fast as possible. And elite performance sometimes happens when those blinders are on, but we trade off things. We can trade off our health. We can trade off our wealth. We can trade off our family, our careers. But any judgment about that is based on somebody's values of those same things, right? And so that's why it's easy to make this look really bad on the outside and go, oh my God, yeah, those guys were horrible. How did this happen? Well, it's just how everybody was wired at the time, right? The mistake comes when people don't take responsibility to kind of get a little higher level and look down and go, how's this working out? Right? Are we making too many sacrifices for the long term? Because we really don't want to do that. But at the time, everybody's in it, right? Everybody's in it. Everybody's going as fast as they can. And sometimes it's like a freight train. It's hard to stop, right? But it needs to stop every once in a while so we can look at it and check it out. Otherwise, it's just barreling down a track, and that track might be heading off a cliff. We don't know, right? So listen, love your coach, love their faults, keep your head up, take what you can, remove the drama, and learn and move ahead according to your goals, your plans, your aspirations. But know that values and performance do butt heads, and when it happens, it's okay to part ways. I don't think it's okay to just slam each other and go, you're wrong, the coach was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. No, it's just when you're in timed events or you're chasing dreams, big dreams, it is what it is, okay? And so you can't get people, can't get upset over it. So listen, everybody, thanks for watching today. Listen, send me a message. Maybe comments here might not be appropriate, but because this is a pretty tough topic. So send me a message. Let me know what you thought about today's call. Depending on where you're hearing about it, you can email me, coachedwards@athletespecific.com. But I want to hear from you because, it's tragic. In Mary Cain's case, it's tragic that it feels like it didn't have to go this way. But also sometimes, everything happens for a reason, and it can be the best thing possible. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Cheers. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's Jonathan, and do me a favor, share this with an athlete, a parent, or coach who needs to hear it. And then head on over to athletespecific.com and download any of our freebies. We've got free automatic negative thought download, free webinars, free courses for athletes and parents, and I hope to see you there soon. Cheers.